sky above Geneva turned dark at noon. It was not clouds or storm that blocked the sun. It was something far worse. A ship hung in the air, so large that its shadow covered the entire city. Its surface was made of crystal that glowed with cold blue light. People stopped in the streets. Cars crashed into each other as drivers looked up in terror. Children cried. Old men fell to their knees. The thing that humanity had feared for centuries had finally arrived. They were not alone in the universe, and whatever had come was not friendly. This was only one ship above Geneva. Reports flooded in from every corner of the world. New York had 7 ships. Beijing had 12. Moscow, London, Tokyo, Sydney, every major city on Earth now sat under the shadow of crystal warships. The count reached 1,000 before the military stopped tracking. Secretary General Lena Vasquez stood at the window of the United Nations building and watched the ship hover without sound. She was 53 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes that had seen too many wars. But she had never seen anything like this. No human had. Her phone rang. It was the President of the United States, then the Prime Minister of Britain, then the leaders of China, Russia, India, and dozens more. They all asked the same question. What do we do? Alina had no answer. Not yet. The answer came 3 hours later when a beam of light shot down from the ship above Geneva. It touched the ground in front of the UN building, and when the light faded, a creature stood there. It was tall, perhaps 3 meters high. Its body was like a snake covered in silver scales, but it stood upright on a thick tail. 4 arms extended from its torso, each ending in hands with too many fingers. Its face was almost human, but the eyes were completely black, like pools of oil. It wore robes of deep purple, and around its neck hung chains made of small colored stones. Each stone, Alina would later learn, represented a world that had surrendered to the Galactic Council. There were hundreds of stones on those chains. The creature's name was Zethkar, and he walked into the United Nations as if he owned it. In a way, he believed he did. He had done this many times before, on many different worlds. The General Assembly had gathered in emergency session. Every ambassador, every leader who could make it in time, sat in their seats and watched the alien approach the podium. Armed soldiers lined the walls, but their guns felt like toys in the presence of that massive ship outside. Zethkar spoke, and somehow everyone understood his words perfectly, as if he was speaking directly into their minds. "I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council," he said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "For 300 of your years, we have watched your species. You have reached the point where you can travel beyond your world. This triggers the protocol of submission." He paused to let the words sink in. Every species that achieves this level of development is given a choice. You will provide tribute to the Council's 60% of your planetary resources each year. In return, you will be allowed to exist. You will have 90 of your planetary rotations to prepare the first shipment. The room erupted. Ambassadors shouted in anger. Some demanded to know what would happen if they refused. Others called for immediate military action. A few simply wept. Zethkar raised one of his 4 hands, and silence fell. Not because people chose to be quiet, but because they found they could not speak. The alien had done something to them. "You're wondering what happens if you refuse," he said. "Let me educate you." Images flooded into the minds of everyone in the room. They saw worlds burning. They saw cities turned to glass. They saw species billions of beings reduced to ash in moments. The Valorians, a proud race of warriors, extinct in a single day. The Kreth, once free, now slaves in mines on 100 worlds. The great libraries of Nexus Prime, burning for 1,000 years. In 12,000 years, Zethkar continued, no species has successfully refused the Council. Some tried. They no longer exist. You are young, small, and weak. Your weapons are primitive. Your ships are barely functional. You have no allies, no fleet, no hope of resistance. Submit, and you will survive as servants. Refuse, and you will not survive at all. He smiled, showing rows of small, sharp teeth. You have 90 rotations. Use them wisely. He turned to leave. This was the moment in his long career when the conquered species would call out, beg for mercy, offer anything to avoid destruction. He had heard it all before. The crying, the pleading, the desperate bargaining of the doomed, but the voice that stopped him was not crying or pleading. Ambassador. Zethkar turned. Secretary General Alina Vasquez was standing. Her hands were steady. Her eyes were clear. She held a single document. Before you leave, she said, I have something for you. Walked down from her seat and approached him without fear. The soldiers tensed. The other leaders held their breath. This small human woman stood before a creature twice her height, representing an empire that had destroyed countless worlds. She handed him the document. Zethkar looked at it with amusement. What is this? Our answer, Alina said. It is a formal rejection of your demands. It has been signed by every nation on Earth. For the first time, the alien's expression changed. His black eyes narrowed. You cannot be serious. We are completely serious. Zethkar laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound. You do not understand what you are doing. You are choosing extinction for your entire species over simple tribute. This is not courage. This is stupidity. Lena did not step back. She did not look away. You have made a critical error, Ambassador, she said. You came here expecting to find what you found on every other world. Frightened creatures willing to kneel for survival. You assumed we were like the others. You are like the others, Zethkar said. You are all the same. Soft, weak, desperate to live. That is where you are wrong. Lena's voice grew stronger. You watched us for 300 years. You saw our wars, our conflicts, our struggles. But you did not understand what you were seeing. We are not a species that kneels. We never have been. Every time a tyrant rose on our world, we fought. Every time we were told to submit, we refused. It is in our blood. It is who we are. She stepped closer to him. You also made another mistake. You thought we did not know you were coming? But we have known for 50 years. We detected your signals. We studied your technology, and we have been preparing, not for submission. For war? Zethkar stared at her. For the first time in centuries, he felt something he had forgotten. Uncertainty. You are bluffing, he said. You have nothing that can challenge the council. Perhaps, Alina said, or perhaps you have never faced anything like us. There's only one way to find out. She looked directly into his black eyes. So here's our answer, Ambassador. Go back to your council. Tell them what we said, and give them this message from the people of Earth. She spoke the words slowly, clearly, so there could be no misunderstanding. Run or face annihilation.
Yes.
The chamber was silent. Zethkar stared at her for a long moment. Then, without another word, he turned and walked out. The beam of light took him back to his ship. Within an hour, the entire fleet had vanished from Earth's skies, but everyone knew they would return, and when they did, humanity would be ready. The Galactic Council gathered in the Great Chamber of Axis Eternal, a station so large it could be seen from distant planets. It floated at the center of council space, a symbol of power that had stood for 10,000 years. The chamber itself was made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. 12 seats rose in a circle, each one holding a member of the ruling species. They had come to discuss the impossible. High Arbiter Morveth sat on the tallest seat. She was ancient, even by council standards. Her body was thin and pale, wrapped in robes of black and gold. Her species, the Valorians, had founded the council 3,000 years ago. In all that time, no one had ever spoken to them the way the humans had spoken. This is absurd, said Admiral Krethfer, a massive creature covered in armored plates. A species barely capable of leaving their own planet threatens us? They are insects. Insects do not build nuclear weapons, said another council member, a being made entirely of flowing liquid metal. Insects do not spread across their world in mere centuries. These humans are something different. Different does not mean dangerous, Morveth said. Her voice was soft, but carried absolute authority. I have seen the reports. Their fastest ships take months to reach their outer planets. Their weapons are primitive projectiles and basic energy systems. They have no shields, no fold drives, no understanding of true warfare. Then why did they refuse? Asked a council member from the shadows. Every species refuses at first. They bargain, they beg, they make noise. But when they see the fleet, they always submit. These humans saw 1,000 ships and still said no. Morvith waved a thin hand. Because they are foolish. Young species often are. They do not truly understand what they face. When we destroy a few of their cities, they will learn. She turned to a figure standing at the edge of the chamber. Fleet Commander Talos was a warrior of the highest rank. His body was covered in scars from 100 campaigns. He had personally overseen the conquest of 37 worlds. Take 50 ships, Morveth ordered. Go to the human system. Destroy one of their major population centers, then give them one more chance to submit. If they refuse again, begin the cleansing. Talos bowed his massive head. It will be done, High Arbiter. Far across the galaxy, Commander James Okonkwo stood on the bridge of a ship that did not officially exist. The Prometheus was humanity's answer to the Council's threat. It was not elegant like the crystal ships of the enemy. It was brutal and practical, built from dark metal and human stubbornness. It carried weapons that had never been tested in actual combat and shields. It's based on technology that human scientists did not fully understand. But it worked. That was all that mattered. Okonkwo was 45 years old, born in Lagos, trained in the United Military that Earth had secretly built over the past 3 decades. He had never known peace. Not really. His entire career had been preparation for this moment. Status report, he said. His second-in-command, Captain Yuki Tanaka, checked her screens. All ships are in position. The asteroid belt is ready. Mars defense grid is online and charged. We have 200 vessels hidden throughout the system, the Council fleet. Approaching the outer boundary now, 50 ships as we predicted. They are not even attempting to hide their approach. Okonkwo allowed himself a small smile. They think this will be easy. Sir, said another officer, I am detecting transmissions from the enemy flagship. They are broadcasting a message to Earth. Put it through. Fleet Commander Talos appeared on the screen. His face was like cracked stone, and his voice was heavy with contempt. People of Earth, your leaders have made a foolish choice. They have chosen death for all of you. But the Council is merciful. We will give you one final chance. Surrender now. Hand over your leaders for execution, and only one of your cities will be destroyed as punishment. Refuse, and we will burn your entire world. You have 1 hour. The transmission ended. How kind of them, Tanaka said dryly. Should we respond? Okonkwo shook his head. No, let them come. Let them think we are afraid. Let them get comfortable. He turned to his weapons officer. Is Mars ready? Yes, sir. Awaiting your command. Could tell them to wait for my signal. Not 1 second before, the Council fleet moved through the human solar system like predators walking through an empty field. They passed the outer planets without incident. No ships came to challenge them. No weapons fired. The humans seemed to have retreated to their homeworld, probably hoping that their insignificant defenses might protect them. Commander Talos watched the approach with boredom. This was not war. This was pest control. We are approaching the 4th planet, his navigator reported. The red one. Scans show no life, no technology, nothing of value. It is a dead world. Ignore it, Talos said. Continue toward Earth. The fleet passed Mars at close range. The planet hung in space, red and silent and seemingly empty. Then it woke up. The first sign was a flash of light from the planet's surface. Talos barely had time to register it before the light became a beam, and the beam struck his formation like the fist of an angry god. 12 ships died in the first second. The crystal hulls, so strong against conventional weapons, shattered like glass under the focused energy. The beams did not stop. They swept across the formation, cutting through shields that had never been breached, melting armor that had never been scratched. What is happening? Talos roared. Where's that coming from? The planet. His officer screamed. The entire planet is a weapon. They built it into the surface. Talos watched in horror as another 5 ships exploded. His fleet was scattering, trying to escape, but the beams followed them with terrible precision. All ships, emergency retreat. He commanded. Get out of range. The survivors turned and ran, but they did not get far. From the asteroid belt, ships emerged. Human ships. They were smaller than council vessels, but they were fast and they were everywhere. They came from behind rocks, from inside hollowed asteroids, from places that sensors had shown as empty. Impossible, Talos whispered. How many ships do they have? Over 200 contacts, his officer said, his voice breaking. They were hiding. They were waiting. The human ships did not fight like any enemy Talos had faced. They moved in coordinated groups, striking weak points, supporting each other, sacrificing themselves to protect their allies. Their weapons fired at frequencies that made Council crystal resonate and crack. They had studied. They had learned. They had prepared. Talos's flagship shook as missiles struck its hull. Warning lights flashed across every screen. The great ship, veteran of 30 conquests, was dying. Send a message to Axis Eternal, Talos ordered. His voice was steady, even now. Tell them what happened here. Tell them. He paused as another explosion rocked the bridge. Tell them we were wrong. The humans were ready. They were waiting. They wanted us to come. The communications officer worked frantically at his console. Message sent, Commander. Talos nodded. Through the viewport, he could see human ships closing in for the final strike. Small ships, crewed by small beings from a small world. Yet here he was, fleet commander of the Galactic Council, about to die at their hands. Remarkable, he said quietly. The last transmission from Talos's fleet reached Axis Eternal 3 hours later. The council members listened in stunned silence. The recording ended with static and the sound of breaking crystal. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then High Arbiter Morveth rose from her seat. Her face showed no emotion, but her hands were trembling. Summon the Grand Armada, she said. All 10,000 ships? We will go to this human world ourselves, and we will turn it to ash. Every man, woman, and child. Every building, every city, every trace that they ever existed. The galaxy will learn what happens when insects challenge gods. The council members nodded in agreement. The humans had won a battle, but war was coming. The news spread across the galaxy like fire through dry grass. The council fleet had been destroyed. 50 warships, commanded by the legendary Talos himself, wiped out by a species that had only left their planet a few decades ago. In mining colonies, in slave pits, in hidden meetings, and whispered conversations, beings of 100 different species spoke the same words. The humans had won. On the prison world of Kreth Prime, old slaves who had not smiled in centuries began to laugh. On the telepathic communes of Nexar, where the council forced mind readers to serve as interrogators, young Nexari started asking dangerous questions. On 1,000 worlds, something that had been dead for millennia began to stir. Hope High Arbiter Morveth understood the danger. This was not just about one small planet anymore. If the humans were not crushed quickly and completely, other species might start to think that resistance was possible. The entire structure of the council, built on fear and submission, could collapse. That was why she committed everything. The Grand Armada assembled above Axis Eternal. 10,000 ships, the largest fleet ever gathered in galactic history. Dreadnoughts the size of small moons. Carriers holding millions of fighters. Bombardment vessels capable of melting continents. This was not a fleet sent to demand tribute. This was a fleet sent to erase a world from existence. Morveth herself boarded the command ship, Eternal Judgment. She would watch the destruction of Earth personally. She would make sure every being in the galaxy saw what happened to those who defied the Council. Set course for the human system, she commanded. Maximum speed. I want their world burning within the week. The Armada moved. 10,000 points of light stretching across space, heading toward a small blue planet that had dared to say no. On Earth, Commander Okonkwo watched the long-range sensors with calm eyes. The approaching fleet was larger than anything humanity had imagined. Their victory against Talos had cost them 60 ships and thousands of lives. Against 10,000 vessels, their remaining fleet would last perhaps an hour. "They are not holding anything back," Captain Tanaka observed. "Every ship they have is coming for us," Okonkwo said. Tanaka looked at him. "Good, sir. We cannot fight that many ships. Even with Mars, even with everything we have, we will be overwhelmed, I know." Okonkwo turned to her with a slight smile. "That is why we are not going to fight them here." He walked to the main display and pulled up a star map. One point was marked in red, far from Earth, far from the approaching armada. "This is Valorian Prime," he said. "The homeworld of the species that founded the Council, the center of their civilization. Every ruling family, every historical site, every symbol of their power is on that world." "We know this," Tanaka said slowly, "but it is on the other side of Council space. It would take our ships months to reach it. With conventional drives, yes." Okonkwo pulled up another display. "Operation Fenrir. For the past 20 years, our scientists have been working on something the Council believes is impossible. Fold space technology, instantaneous travel across any distance." Tanaka stared at him. "We have fold drives. Why did we not use them against Talos?" "Because we did not need to. And because we were saving them for this." He pointed at Valorian Prime. "The Council is coming to Earth with everything they have. That means their homeworld, for the first time in 3,000 years, is undefended." Understanding dawned in Tanaka's eyes. "We are going to attack their home while they attack ours. More than that. We are going to hold their families hostage. Every soldier in that armada has someone on Valorian Prime, parents, children, loved ones. They think they are coming to destroy us. Instead, they will arrive to find that we hold everything they care. About in our hands, the human fleet gathered in secret, far from Earth, hidden in the shadow of Neptune. 120 ships, everything they could spare while still maintaining Earth's defenses. Their crews knew this might be a one-way mission. They went anyway." Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as the fold drives powered up. The technology was unstable, untested over such distances. There was a real chance some ships would simply vanish, lost forever in folded space. "All ships reporting ready," Tanaka announced. Okonkwo nodded. "Send the signal. Operation Fenrir begins now." Space twisted. Reality bent, and 120 human ships disappeared from the solar system. "Hi." Arbiter Morvith was reviewing battle plans when the alarm sounded. She looked up in annoyance. They were still days from the human system. What could possibly be wrong? "Report," she demanded. Her communications officer was pale, her hands shaking over the controls. "Hi, Arbiter. We are receiving emergency transmissions from Valorian Prime."
"Hi."
"Ships, hi, Arbiter. Alien ships. They appeared without warning directly above the capital. Hundreds of them." Morvith stood frozen. This was impossible. No one could reach Valorian Prime without being detected weeks in advance. No one could bypass the sensor networks, the patrol routes, the defensive stations. "Show me," she whispered. The main display lit up with images transmitted from her homeworld. Human ships hung in the sky above the great cities of Valorian Prime. They were ugly things. All angles and dark metal, nothing like the elegant crystal vessels of the Council, but they were there. They were real, and they were pointing weapons at everything her people had built over millennia. A transmission came through. A human face appeared on every screen in the fleet. On every display, on Valorian Prime, on every channel the Council controlled, Commander James Okonkwo spoke calmly. "People of the Galactic Council, I am Commander Okonkwo of the Earth Defense Force. As you can see, we are currently in orbit above your homeworld. Your cities are within range of our weapons. Your population centers are targeted. Your government buildings, your temples, your nurseries. All of it is one command away from destruction. Morveth gripped her console so hard that her fingers cracked the surface. You sent your fleet to destroy our world, Okonkwo continued. You thought we would cower and wait for death? You were wrong. We do not wait. We do not cower. And we do not lose. He paused, letting the words sink in. Now you have a choice. Your Grand Armada is heading for Earth. Every soldier on those ships has family here on Valorian Prime. Order them home. Turn back. Leave our world in peace. Do this, and we will leave your world unharmed. We are not here to destroy you. We are here to show you what we could do if we wanted to. His voice hardened. But if you continue to ward Earth, if you try to call our bluff, then understand this. We will burn Valorian Prime to bedrock. Every city, every monument, every living thing. Your soldiers will arrive at an empty human world to find that they no longer have a home to return to. They will spend the rest of their lives knowing that their leaders sacrificed everything they loved for pride. He leaned forward. You have 1 hour to decide. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. On Valorian Prime, panic erupted. Civilians flooded the streets, screaming at the sky, demanding to know why the military was not protecting them. Government officials tried to restore order and failed. Riots broke out in 3 major cities. Families of council soldiers sent desperate messages to the Grand Armada, begging them to come home. On the eternal judgment, Morveth stood in silence. Her officers waited for orders. Her fleet waited for direction. 10,000 ships, the greatest force ever assembled, suddenly useless. High Arbiter, her admiral said carefully. What are your orders? Morveth stared at the image of human ships above her homeworld. She thought of her own family down there, her siblings, her children, everything she had worked to protect. The humans had done what no species had ever done. They had not just fought the Council, they had outsmarted it. They had turned the Council's own weapon, fear, against itself. Turn the fleet around, she said. The words felt like poison in her mouth. We are going home, the Grand Armada of the Galactic Council. The most powerful military force in history, retreated without firing a single shot. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Captain Tanaka let out a breath she had been holding for an hour. They are turning back. It worked. Okonkwo nodded slowly. This time, but this is not over. We have shown them that we can hurt them. Now, they will learn from their mistakes, and they will come back. Then what do we do? Okonkwo looked at the planet below, at the millions of beings living in fear of the ships above them. We do not wait for them to try again. We take the fight to them, not to conquer, but to set people free. The war for the galaxy had just begun. The retreat of the Grand Armada shook the foundations of galactic civilization. For 12,000 years, the Council had ruled through one simple truth. Resistance was death. Now that truth had been shattered by a species so young that most Council races had been building empires. Before humans learned to make fire, the impossible had happened. The Council had blinked. Secretary General Elena Vasquez stood before the leaders of Earth and proposed a plan that would have seemed insane just months ago. They would not wait for the Council to recover. They would not build defenses and hope for peace. They would bring the war to every corner of Council space. Not through conquest, but through liberation. The Council rules because every species believes they are alone, Vasquez explained. They think no one will help them, so they accept their chains. We need to show them that they are not alone. We need to give them something they have forgotten exists. Hope. Operation Liberation began 3 days later. Human ships appeared above Kreth Prime, a mining world where the Kreth species had been enslaved for 800 years. The Kreth were massive creatures, four-armed and strong as machines, forced to dig precious metals from their own homeworld for Council factories. They had tried to rebel twice. Both times, the Council had killed millions until the survivors surrendered. Commander Okonkwo broadcast a message that every Kreth could hear. People of Kreth Prime, The Galactic Council is not invincible. We proved this at Earth. We proved this at Valorian Prime. They can be beaten. They can be driven back. And we will stand with anyone who chooses to fight. For a long moment, nothing happened. The Kreth had been slaves for so long that many had forgotten what freedom felt like. They were afraid. They had reason to be afraid. Then a single Kreth, old and scarred from centuries of labor, walked out of his mine shaft. He looked up at the human ships in his sky. He picked up a tool that had been used to dig tunnels, and he walked toward the Council Overseer building. Others followed. Then hundreds. Then thousands. Across Kreth Prime, slaves who had never known anything but chains began to rise. Human soldiers landed to support them, fighting beside creatures 3 times their size. The Council garrison, unprepared for rebellion on a world that had been quiet for centuries, was overwhelmed within hours. Word spread faster than any ship could travel. The Kreth were free. The humans had helped them, and they were coming to help others. On Nexar, the telepathic homeworld, young Nexari had been watching the human rebellion with growing excitement. Their species had been forced to serve as the Council's interrogators. Using their mental abilities to break prisoners and extract secrets, many had gone mad from the pain they were forced to inflict. Many more had simply stopped caring about anything at all. A Nexari elder named Cylon made contact with the human fleet. She was ancient, her mental powers fading, but her mind was clear. She offered something priceless: information. The Nexari knew Council secrets. They knew patrol routes, defensive codes, the locations of hidden installations. They knew the truth about the Council's ultimate weapon. There is a station, Cylon told Commander Okonkwo through a secure channel, deep in Council space. It is called the God Killer. The Council built it long ago, before they began demanding tribute. It was designed for one purpose: destroying stars. Okonkwo felt cold despite the warmth of the bridge. They can destroy stars? Yes. They have only used it twice, against species who resisted too effectively. The weapon destabilizes a sun, causing it to expand and consume everything in the system. Billions die. No evidence remains. The Council tells the galaxy that the species simply disappeared. Why are you telling me this? Cylon's mental voice carried deep sadness. Because High Arbiter Morvith has ordered the God Killer activated. She has targeted your son. Your world, your species, your entire system will be erased within days, unless someone stops her. The news spread through the human command structure, like ice water through veins. They had won battle after battle, freed world after world, and none of it would matter if the Council could simply destroy Sol from the other side of the galaxy. Captain Yuki Tanaka studied the intelligence reports that the Nexari had provided. The God Killer was located within Axis Eternal itself, the great station at the heart of Council space. It was protected by layers of security that made their previous missions look simple. The station holds millions of beings, Tanaka said. Council loyalists, administrators, workers. It is also heavily fortified. Our entire fleet could not take it by force. Then we do not take it by force, Okonkwo replied. We take it with precision. A small team moving fast, targeting the God Killer directly. That would be suicide, probably. Okonkwo looked at the display showing Axis Eternal. But if we do not try, everyone on Earth dies anyway. I would rather die fighting than burn when the sun explodes. Tanaka was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. I will lead the team. Captain, I need you here. The fleet needs you. The fleet needs someone who can reach the God Killer. I am the best close combat officer we have. You know this? She met his eyes. Commander, you gave us hope when we had none. You showed us we could fight back. Let me do my part. Okonkwo wanted to refuse. Tanaka was more than his second in command. She was his friend. But he saw the determination in her eyes, and he knew that this was her choice to make. Pick your team, he said quietly. The best we have? Whatever you need, you will have it. Naka assembled 60 soldiers. They were volunteers, every one of them knowing exactly what they were walking into. Engineers, combat specialists, medics, pilots. They trained for 3 days straight, memorizing the layout of Axis Eternal from Nexar intelligence, practicing breaching techniques, preparing for every scenario they could imagine. On the night before departure, Tanaka visited each member of her team personally. Some were writing letters to families. Some were praying. Some were simply sitting in silence, making peace with what was coming. She did not offer empty comfort. She told them the truth. Many of them would not survive. But what they were doing mattered. What they were doing would save billions. The Kreth provided heavy weapons. The Nexari provided real-time telepathic communication, allowing the team to coordinate without radio signals that could be intercepted. The Colonian Republic, an ancient species that still remembered freedom, sent their best medics along with armor plating for the human shuttles. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species were working together against the Council. Not because they were forced to. Because they chose to, Tanaka stood before her team one final time. They were in the shuttle bay of the Prometheus, loading equipment, making final preparations. "You all know what we are facing," she said. "The odds are not in our favor. Most missions like this fail. Most teams like this do not come back." She paused. "But we are not most teams. We are not fighting for territory or resources or pride. We are fighting because somewhere on Earth, children are looking up at the sun. Not knowing that someone is trying to destroy it, we are fighting because every species in this galaxy deserves a chance to be free. We are fighting because if we do not, no one will." She looked at each face. Humans, Kreth, Nexari, Colonians. Different shapes, different sizes, different histories. United by something stronger than fear. "Humanity has never needed fair odds," Tanaka continued. "We just need a chance. And this is our chance. Whatever happens on Axis Eternal, the galaxy will remember that we tried, that we stood up, that we refused to kneel." She picked up her weapon. "Let us show them what happens when free people fight together." The shuttles launched, carrying 60 soldiers toward the heart of enemy territory. Tanaka watched through the viewport as the Prometheus grew smaller behind them. She might never see it again. She might never see Earth again. But that was acceptable. Because if she succeeded, Earth would still be there for others to see. And that was enough. The shuttle entered fold space. And the assault on Axis Eternal began. The shuttles emerged from fold space in the maintenance sector of Axis Eternal, exactly where the Nexari intelligence had indicated. The station was so vast that small craft could enter through service ports without triggering the main alarms. Captain Tanaka and her team had, perhaps, 30 minutes before their presence was detected. 30 minutes to save the solar system. They moved fast through corridors that had never seen combat. The station's designers had never imagined an enemy could get this deep. Security was light, focused outward against external threats. The team split into 3 groups. 1 to create a diversion. 1 to disable communications. And 1 led by Tanaka to reach the Godkiller control center. The first shots were fired 7 minutes in. A council patrol stumbled onto the diversion team. The fighting was brief and brutal. 3 humans died, but the alarm was raised. Now everyone on the station knew they were under attack. "Move faster," Tanaka ordered through the telepathic link that the Nexari provided. "We are out of time for stealth." Her team ran through corridors that were beginning to fill with station guards. The Kreth, members of her squad, took point, their massive bodies absorbing fire that would have killed humans instantly. The Nexari scouts reached out with their minds, sensing enemies around corners before they appeared. The Colonian medics worked constantly, keeping wounded fighters moving. They lost 12 soldiers in the first 20 minutes. Each death hurt. Tanaka knew their names, their stories, their families back home. But she could not stop. She could not mourn. Not yet. The Godkiller Control Center was located at the heart of Axis Eternal. It's protected by the thickest walls and the heaviest security. When Tanaka's team reached the outer door, only 23 of them remained from the original group. "Explosives!" she ordered. "Everything we have." They blew the door open and rushed into hell. High Arbiter Morvith was waiting for them. She stood at the center of the control room, surrounded by her elite guard. 50% of the Council's best warriors, armed with weapons that could cut through human armor like paper. Morvith herself held a staff that crackled with energy, an ancient weapon of her people. "I knew you would come," Morvith said. Her voice echoed through the room. "Your species is remarkably predictable. You could not simply accept your fate. You had to struggle, to fight, to make grand gestures of defiance." Tanaka stepped forward, her weapon raised. "We are not here to make gestures. We are here to stop you," Morvith laughed. It was a cold, hollow sound. "You have 20 soldiers. I have 50 of the finest warriors in the galaxy, and I have this." She gestured to the massive console behind her, where lights pulsed in a deadly rhythm. "The God Killer is already charging. In 1 hour, it will fire. Your sun will destabilize. Your world will burn, and there is nothing you can do to stop it." 1 hour is a long time, Tanaka said. The battle began. It was not a clean fight. It was chaos and blood and screaming. Tanaka's team was outnumbered more than 2-to-1 by warriors with centuries of combat experience. They should have been slaughtered in seconds, but they were not fighting for conquest or glory. They were fighting for everything they loved, and that made them dangerous. A Kreth soldier charged into a group of guards. Knowing he would die, but buying time for others to advance, an Exari scout sacrificed himself to send one final telepathic warning about an ambush. Human soldiers threw themselves at enemies twice their size. Fighting with a fury that the Council guards had never witnessed, the room became a graveyard. Bodies fell on both sides. The air filled with smoke and the smell of burning. Tanaka fought her way toward Morvith, losing soldiers with every step. 15 became 10. 10 became 5. 5 became 2. Then she was alone, standing before the High Arbiter with blood on her face and fire in her eyes. Morvith studied her with something like curiosity. "You have killed many of my guards. Impressive for a human. But you are wounded, exhausted, and I have been fighting since before your species learned to walk upright." "Then let us see if you remember how," Tanaka said. They fought. Morvith was fast and skilled, her staff a blur of deadly energy. Tanaka was slower, injured, running on nothing but willpower. She took hits that should have killed her. She kept fighting. She kept moving forward, because behind her, somewhere in the distance, was a small, blue planet where children were sleeping under the light of a yellow sun. And she would not let that light go out. The final blow came when Tanaka made a choice. She let Morveth's staff pierce her shoulder, accepting the wound so that she could get close enough to strike. Her blade found the gap in Morveth's armor. The High Arbiter fell. Tanaka stumbled to the control console. Her vision was blurring. Her hands were shaking. She had perhaps minutes before she lost consciousness. The console was complex, covered in symbols she did not recognize. But she did not need to understand it. She just needed to destroy it. "You fool," Morvith gasped from the floor. "If you destroy the controls while the weapon is charging, it will cause a cascade failure. The entire station will be destroyed." "I know," Tanaka said. She pulled every explosive she had left from her belt and placed them on the console. Then she activated the detonator. The explosion tore through the control center. Systems failed, across axis eternal. Emergency alarms screamed. The God Killer, deprived of its control mechanisms, began to shut down. Its deadly charge dissipating into empty space. Tanaka lay on the floor, surrounded by debris and bodies. She could not feel her legs. She could not move her arms. But she could see, through a crack in the wall, the stars beyond. She smiled. The station began to break apart. Sections separated and drifted away. Escape pods launched in every direction. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Commander Okonkwo watched the destruction with tears in his eyes. "Get our people out of there," he ordered. "Any survivors, any escape pods, I do not care whose side they were on. Save everyone we can." Human ships dove into the debris field. They pulled survivors from wreckage without asking whether they were friend or enemy. Kreth vessels joined them, and Nexari ships and Colonian medical cruisers. In the chaos of Axis Eternal's destruction, something new was being born. A galaxy that fought together, that saved each other. It did not divide people into masters and slaves. They found Tanaka in the ruins of the control center. She was barely alive, her body broken, but her heart still beating. The medics did not know if she would survive, but they would try. They would do everything they could. Morvath's escape pod was recovered 3 hours later. The former High Arbiter sat in silence as human soldiers opened the hatch. She expected execution. She expected torture. She expected the revenge that any species would rightfully take against the being who had tried to destroy their world. Instead, they gave her water and medical attention. They treated her wounds. They spoke to her with something that might have been respect. She did not understand. Secretary General Luis Vasquez was the one who explained it to her. In a transmission sent across the galaxy, "We are not like you," Vasquez said. "We do not believe in extinction. We do not believe that some beings deserve to live while others deserve to die. Every species in this galaxy has value. Every life has worth. Even yours." She paused. "The council is finished. Your empire of fear is over. But we are not here to replace one tyranny with another. We are here to build something different. A union of free peoples, bound not by threat of destruction, but by mutual respect and shared purpose." "You are naive," Morvath replied. "The strong will always dominate the weak. It is the nature of the universe. Perhaps. Or perhaps the universe is bigger than you imagined. Perhaps strength is not just about weapons and armies. Perhaps it is about the willingness to extend a hand to those who tried to destroy you, because you believe they can be better." Morvath had no answer to that. 1 year later, the Terran Compact held its first full assembly. Delegates from 37 species gathered on a station built in neutral space, a symbol of the new order. The Kreth were there, free for the first time in 8 centuries. The Nexari were there, their telepathic abilities now used to heal rather than harm. The Colonians were there, their ancient wisdom guiding the formation of new laws. Even some former council species attended, cautiously exploring what it meant to be equals rather than masters. Ambassador Zethkar, the serpentine being who had delivered the original ultimatum to Earth, was now a diplomat in the Compact. He found Commander Okonkwo during a quiet moment and asked the question that had haunted him since the beginning.
Ow.
"How did a species as young as yours defeat an empire that had ruled for 12,000 years?" Okonkwo considered the question carefully. "You studied our technology," he said finally. "You measured our resources, counted our ships, calculated our military strength. By every metric you used, we should have lost.
Us.
But you did not, because you never studied us. Our history, our stories, the 1,000 times our ancestors faced impossible odds and refused to surrender. You saw a primitive world full of weak creatures. We saw every underdog story ever told, and we decided to write one more." Zethkar was quiet for a long moment. "I think I understand now. You did not defeat us with weapons or tactics. You defeated us with something we did not know how to fight. What was that?" "Belief. You believed you could win, even when all evidence said you could not. And that belief became reality." Okonkwo nodded. "Perhaps, or perhaps we were just too stubborn to know when we were beaten." The ceremony concluded with a memorial to those who had fallen. Names were read aloud, thousands of them from every species that had fought for freedom. Human names and Kreth names and Nexori names, all mixed together. All equally honored, Captain Yuki Tanaka stood at the front of the assembly. She had spent 6 months recovering from her wounds, and she would carry scars for the rest of her life. But she was alive, and she was standing. The final speaker asked her to say a few words. She approached the podium slowly, looking out at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. "They demanded tribute," she said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "They expected us to kneel, to accept our place, to surrender everything we were for the privilege of survival. They were very confident. They had done this many times before." She paused. "But they made a mistake. They forgot that some things are worth more than survival. Freedom is worth more. Dignity is worth more. The chance to stand tall and say no is worth more than any comfort that comes from submission. She looked at the memorial, at the names of the fallen. These people understood that. They gave their lives not for power or conquest, but for the simple idea that every being deserves to be free. Human, Kreth, Nexari, Colonium, it did not matter. They fought as one. They died as one. And because of them, we stand here today as one. She straightened, her eyes bright. The council demanded tribute. We gave them something better. We gave them a universe that finally learned to stand. The assembly rose to its feet, not in applause, but in acknowledgement. In promise, in commitment to a future where no species would ever kneel again. Outside the station's viewports, stars burned in the endless dark. The same stars that had watched the rise and fall of 1,000 empires, the same stars that would watch whatever came next, and among them, small and blue and beautiful, a single planet orbited a yellow sun. Its people looked up at the sky and knew, for the first time in their history, they were not alone. They never would be again.